Welcome back. Joining us now in studio is Representative Tom Newell. Representative Newell, thanks so much for being with us here today. You heard us talking just a second ago about the call for special session, and we've been hearing it quite a bit. It's been in the paper and whatnot. Are you hearing this call as well? Are you talking with your colleagues? How likely is it that we'll have a special session?
I'm hearing the same thing that you're hearing. And as Trent pointed out, some of the people that want a special session just weren't happy with the budget to begin with. And the reality is, especially in a down budget year, no one's ever going to be completely happy with the budget. We've had the storms, the floods, and of course transportation funding was one of the key issues in the budget anyways. But in all honesty, I think the governor and our leaders are going to do everything they can to avoid a special session. I think they'll be able to move some money around and all of that. And if we have to do some extra money, they'll probably try and hold that off, and we'll just do a supplemental at the beginning of next session.
So, you know, outside the budget, there are other issues that were kind of left hanging at the end of the session. What happens to those things as we head into the summer here, and you guys aren't coming back to session, assuming if there is no special session until February next year?
Well, because we're in the middle of a legislative session, we've been in between elections, everything that was held over last year will still be eligible when we come back next year. So a lot of people will be doing interim studies in the fall. We'll be out talking to our constituents and kind of just getting ready for everything next year.
So if there was an issue that one of our viewers right now has been tracking all session long, or maybe they're involved with, and it didn't get to a final vote or to the governor, it was either held over, or maybe the issue really didn't bubble up as much this year, and they want to get involved, what would you recommend to them as the best way here this summer or into the fall for them to engage and help advance their issue?
Well, the first thing they want to do is engage the author, engage their local representative or senator as well. The other thing I would say is begin to talk to their friends about it and get all their friends engaged and say, hey, you know, there's not a whole lot we can do right now, but as we get closer to session, we're all going to work together and call our representative, call our senator, maybe call the chairman, call the governor, email, and have their voice heard that way.
Well, one of the things I worry about is by the time the legislature comes into session, so the beginning of next February, there are deadlines that are already passed. Tell folks what those deadlines are so that they know if there is something that hasn't been introduced, what's the schedule to make that happen or to try to work with the legislator?
That's a great question. It's something that we get oftentimes from our constituents. They'll call us up in the middle of session and say, hey, I want you to introduce this bill. Well, by the time session has started, it's already too late to introduce a bill in Oklahoma. At the federal government, they can introduce a bill whenever they want to. But for us, we have deadlines all the way back in December on requesting topics and that type of thing, and then actually filing those bills long before session starts.
You guys have rules, and you can't even print your own money. I mean, that's right.
We should point out that the federal government is continuous, and full-time lawmakers at Congress and Senate and
We're
in the
never
executive. But at the state level, you all are considered part-time lawmakers. You're part of the year, and so that's why I guess a lot of this schedule goes through.
Correct. Yeah, we have a very short window to get things done, and so we try to get a head start on that by having these deadlines before session starts. We have limited staff, and it just takes time for when all those members are filing all those bills at once. We have to make sure we plan that work accordingly.
So in that interim, while that's happening, we just told everyone about how the Middle Ground is going to continue and the conversation continues online through the radio program, print program. How attuned are you all in the summer and the fall to that kind of discussion and conversation that's going on? I know the McCarville Report is another top political blog a lot of folks follow. Are you all paying attention to that? Or is the noise that's building throughout the summer something that's on your mind as you go into bill drafting?
Oh, obviously. You know, there's kind of a cycle that happens. We get out of session, and most of us have other jobs, and so we're trying to maybe play catch up with that a little bit, reconnect with the family a little bit, decompress just a little bit. But we also, like I've got over the next month, 5 or 6 different events scheduled throughout the district where I'll be doing legislative wrap-ups with Chamber of Commerce's, Rotary, Lions Clubs, those kinds of things. But then as we get, we also have to put our requests in for interim studies in the next week or so. But we take a little break from that, and as we get to the summer, we begin gearing up by having those interim studies and looking at what our topics are going to be. And most of us are at least staying at least somewhat in tune to what's going on with McCarville Report and those types of things as well.
I mean, some people are political junkies. I mean, are most legislators political junkies, or do you just get burned out by it all?
I would say most of us are political junkies. Again, there's that little period that some of us are in right now where you take a little breather, take a little break, but then you immediately kind of get back into it. And many of us, even though we take somewhat of a break, we're still staying in tune to some degree.
We should also point out, since we broadcast from the Oklahoma City area, that there is going to be a special election to fill the House seat of one of your colleagues, David Dank, who passed away. That seat, District 85, I believe, will be this summer, correct? That
Yes.
election will come up. So something locally folks can get involved in there. What about the electoral process? Filing date won't be till April, but for our viewers that are watching that want to run for office and are thinking of getting a campaign started, what would this summer and fall look like for them?
Well, there have been some people that have already announced for one of the term-limited seats, meaning that the incumbent cannot run again. Some people have already announced. Other people are already talking to consultants, talking about can they raise the money. And most people will be making announcements by no later than October and raising money for that if they're going to run next year.
Representative Newell, thank you so much for being here, and good luck to you this summer, and we'll see you next session.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Folks, MiddleGround TV may be going on hiatus, but MiddleGround isn't going anywhere. We have a couple of announcements that we'll make later on in the show. Stay tuned.